Hey, it looks like everybody is in and connected to their audio. So thanks everybody for joining us today. Before we get started, I'm going to hand things off to Andre Herp from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada to say a few words before we begin this afternoon.
Well, thank you very, very much, Amy. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for coming, joining us today, and happy Canada Ag Day. Days like this are so important because they give farmers and ranchers a platform to share and celebrate the industry we all love and work with and get to share with consumers. Plus, Canada Ag Day also gives us an opportunity to celebrate our own accomplishments, be they on our own farms or in our communities. And they will remind us that we are all part of something bigger. My name is Andre Harp, and I'm a farmer and a member of the Agricultural Financial Services Board of Directors. And I'm extremely proud that AFSC is supporting this event and the important work of the Do More Ag Foundation. We've come together today to recognize Canada's producers and the incredible work that they do each day to feed the world. At AFSC, we are proud to help support this cornerstone industry, and I look forward to hearing from today's panelists as they share their stories, their challenges, and their coping tools. Thank you.
Thanks, Andre. And I apologize. I said Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. 'Cause that's what my notes
Oh,
say.
that's
So. But
I'll
thank you.
survive.
Thank you very much. So my name is Amy Vanderhyde, and I am a poultry producer, crop farmer. I wear many hats in the industry, along with sitting on the board for the Do More Agriculture Foundation, which is a national voice for farmers in mental health across Canada. And we are a champion and that national voice to really bring together producers across Canada and provide resources for those that may be struggling with mental illness, or somebody they know or love is struggling, and also just to brush up on some skills like mental health training and oh, there's a whole bunch of things. You can check out our website at domore.ag for more. It's listed in the chat there now, and you can look it up anytime. So I am going to go around my screen and introduce everybody today. I'm going to start with Caitlin because I know she may have to pop off very briefly because she is doing double duty this Canada's Ag Day. So Caitlin, if you want to go through an introduction and let us know where you're coming from today.
Thanks, Amy. I'm listening to you in one ear and the speaker on the stage behind me in the other. My name is Caitlin Dubin. I am a first generation farmer. I am part of a multi-generational grain farm in southern Alberta. We are a certified organic operation as of 2018. We grow a multitude of grains and oil seeds. I did not grow up in agriculture. I am lucky enough to come into it as my second act. And in my third act today, I am hosting the FCC Young Farmer Summit here in Camrose, Alberta. And I have to sneak away to welcome our friends to lunch, but a little bit more about myself. I'm so happy and proud to be on this panel today. I recognize a lot of amazing people and their stories. Back in 2019, I was looking for a podcast to hear the stories of women in agriculture. And when I couldn't find one, I selfishly started my own so I could hear the stories of incredible women in agriculture. So back in 2019, I started the Rural Woman podcast to highlight and amplify the voices of women in agriculture. And since then, we're up to our 190th episode, and I have interviewed women from all across agriculture and all across the world, including some of these amazing women here today. And to hear the stories of everything from chicken farming to growing garlic to milking cows to growing grain. We all have our unique stories, and I think that is something that's really special for folks in agriculture. And I'm so excited to share Canada's Agriculture Day with you all. And I can't wait to hear from all of the rest of the panelists. So thank you again so much for having me.
Thanks, Caitlin, and we look forward to chatting with you more when you're back on the screen. Before we move on, I did want to mention that anytime throughout the next hour that you have a question or a comment, please feel free to use the chat function. It's being monitored, so we'll get to your question as we go. Next, I think we will go to Janice in Ontario.
Great. I wasn't sure if I was going to be the next one. I was like wondering what there was going to be, but I'm Janice Harris, and our farm is Harris Flower Farm. We're in southwestern Ontario, and I grew up on my parents' farm with they grew vegetables, organic vegetables. And looking back to me as a teenager, and even in my early 20s, if you would have told me I would have been farming, I would have said, yeah, right. I tried to get away from farming. I thought, no, I want to have a job in the city. I want a regular paying job. So I went to college and became an optician, and I did that for about 10 years or so. And then I teased my husband that he was the reason I came back to the farm. But I met him, and he grew up on a different type of farm, a cow calf farm. And I think I had to prove that I still had some farm girl in me or something. So after work, I wanted to grow something, and I wanted to have another little income. And my parents' farm was still farming vegetables and going to the farmer's market. So that summer, I put in 3,000 gladiolus, not a small number of them. I started off big with those and sold them at the farmer's market beside my parents' vegetable stand. And then every year from that, I just kept adding and adding to what we grew. So then in 2011, we bought my grandparents' farm, which is just one road south from my parents. My grandpa milked cows back in the 90s when you could milk 14 cows and raise 6 children. But he did that on their farm and stopped milking about the 90s or so. And then after he passed away, Grandma lived here for a few years, and then she was ready to move into town. So we bought the farm from her. So our farm originally was 100 acres when we bought it, but we knew we never would have that size of a flower farm. So we were able to sell part of the field to our neighbor who was already working the ground. And we were able to keep 10 acres for our farm. So on my amount of land is probably smaller than some of the others on this panel, but we grow about 6 acres of flowers in total. So in greenhouses and out in the field. So we're cranking out the flowers on our farm and using them in farmers markets. We still do go to that original farmers market. We also go supply a few small grocery stores in our area. So we do that through the season. And then we have now changed into doing a lot of weddings as well. So I grow the flowers and then use them in the wedding design that we do as well. So throughout the season, flowers are going kind of every way in the summertime. And I'm actually pretty proud today. I was able to pick flowers for Valentine's for tomorrow. So we do have flowers in our greenhouse blooming now, which is kind of the first. Last year we had a couple, but this year we have more going. And then we go until about November or so, we have flowers blooming. So we can go now, I'll say February till November with flowers at our farm. So that's pretty cool that way. And yeah, so I think it's good to see all the different parts of farming as well, because not all farmers produce food. My kind of fun thing about it is I produce food for the soul. So I produce food that's going to make people happy. So
It's a great way of looking at it. And I know a few flower farmers, and it's pretty intense. Like your windows are short and you guys crank them out. It's great to see. Thanks for that, Janice. I'm going to move to next on my screen, which is Kyle.
Thanks, Amy. Can you hear me all right? Yeah, my name is Kyle Stewart. I'm a rancher in Southwest Saskatchewan. I ranch with my wife and our daughters. We have a cow calf and yearling operation. So we typically sell half our calves and then keep half back, feed them and grass them, and then sell them the next year off of grass. We actually moved here from BC back in 17. So we have a bit of a broad view of different challenges in different parts of the country as far as ranching goes. But yeah, we're happy to be here in Southwest Saskatchewan. Be happier if it started raining, but we'll see what happens this spring. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
We on the East Coast are the opposite of you, Kyle, and hoping that we don't have near as much rain as we did last year. So hopefully it, evens out and works more in your favor. Kristen.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kristen, and I'm with Fifth Gen Gardens. My business is actually 8 years old now, that I've been on the farm, but I actually grew up on the farm, and my family's been involved in agriculture for 5 generations now. Every generation's done something a little bit different. My grandfather, when he was young, there were pigs. My dad had a calf operation. We did Alberta raised trout for a while. So everybody's done something a little bit different. My contribution towards that is a 3-acre market garden. And in more recent years, I've kind of found my niche with growing garlic. So I grow about 5 acres of garlic. It evens out to about 75,000 bulbs, sometimes up to 100,000. But in the summers, I spend my time growing. And then in the winters, I spend my time processing, cooking, and creating. So I've made a line of specialty garlic products that I do sell at markets. So my background is actually in healthcare. Much like a lot of farmers I hear, never really planned to actually be a farmer. I always appreciated our land and appreciated what our family did, but I had my sights set for something completely different. And so I was trained to be an X-ray tech. I worked at a trauma institute in Edmonton, in Alberta here for over 10 years, and during which I worked in trauma and had more than my fair share. And eventually it became increasingly obvious that I needed to make a change, which is where my business started from. So I went from having night terrors and just mentally not being okay and being generally like afraid of everything to then healing on our farm and finding my passion and figuring out that this is actually what I want to do. And I love it, every part of it.
Thanks for sharing that with us. We'll come back to that later. And last and certainly not least, Sarah.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Sash. I'm a dairy producer from the Fraser Valley. I, like many of my panelists, fellow panelists here, had no plans to be a farmer. Given that it's Valentine's Day tomorrow, will mention that I met my husband in a wedding. So I was working in Vancouver. I went to UBC for 5 years. I have a degree in Canadian studies, ultimately, so human geography and resource policy. And I was working in corporate compliance in the city. And yeah, we were paired together in a wedding. And what do you know? I married a dairy farmer and moved to Chilliwack. So I've been farming with him and his brother for the last 15 years or so. We built a robotic milking facility in 2015, and that same year their dad passed away. So we've kind of been a young gang of farmers here and raising our own families and trying to stay current with the industry. But further to that, I really enjoy governance, I guess you could say. Not many people do that, but I have a governance background, and so I became involved provincially. I used Instagram actually to get myself elected to the provincial board for BC Dairy. So as someone marrying into the industry, I really didn't have a lot of contacts or way of people knowing me to do a job like that. So yeah, I used Instagram and grew my network and got to know a lot more people that way. And I ended up being vice chair of BC Dairy for the last 4 years. And then this last year, I've been fortunate to represent BC on Dairy Farmers of Canada. So for me, that's been a really interesting journey. There's not a lot of other women doing it. There's not a lot of people who come from outside of ag or different backgrounds being involved. But for me, and we'll get into it as we talk about some of the factors that are involved in farming, But it's really important to me that we modernize our systems in the industry, that we talk a lot more about a lot more things that maybe we haven't talked about in agriculture in the past. And so I spend a lot of time doing that. And then weekends, I work in the barn. So I kind of find myself traveling a lot during the week. I do all the bookkeeping for our farm. I do the grant hunting. I'm always farming paper here, trying to find ways to either bring new technology to the farm or new opportunities to the business. And then on the weekends, I work in the barn managing the heifers. So that's something that I really enjoy, that brings me joy and reminder, and why I like to participate in the stuff that I do out off the farm, because it's not always easy. But when I get back in the barn on the weekends, I have a great time out there with the girls, and it reminds me what's special about this. And yeah, so I just love to build community and connection in the industry, and to try to talk more with people about what their experience is and what agriculture brings to their lives, because it's getting increasingly less common that people have a connection with us. And the more we can connect with each other and connect outside our industry, I think the better it is for everyone. So really grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. I think our stories are pretty similar. I did grow up wanting to be a farmer, but knowing I wasn't going to be able to take over what was my grandparents' farm. But now I'm much like you. I enjoy the governance side of things. I currently sit as the chair of Chicken Farmers of Nova Scotia, and spend a fair amount of time in Ottawa with Chicken Farmers of Canada as well. So it's something that actually fills my cup to, you know, remove myself from the stressors of every day on the farm, and, you know, dealing with my children and all of that running around and stuff. It kind of takes your mind out of that tunnel vision we sometimes get when we're just kind of plowing through, shall we say, everything on the farm. So thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. So what we really wanted to do today is kind of celebrate Canadian agriculture, Canadian food, the people that work within agriculture. That's what Canada's Ag Day is all about. But because we're due more, we wanted to put a spin on what, you know, recharges our batteries. So maybe that is being more involved in industry things. Maybe it's taking a break with a book for a while during the day. It doesn't have to be anything grand. It doesn't have to be anything you know, that takes a lot of time, but things that for you personally help get through, you know, those crazy summers when crops are coming off and calves are being born. And you probably calve in the winter, Kyle. I don't know, we calve in the summer. So Sarah, you calve all year round. But it's yeah, we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, because as we all know, in farming and agriculture, we are our greatest asset. So I see Caitlin's back, so I'm gonna pop in on her again. And if you have anything to add, just hop on. We want this to be as organic and as much as a conversation as possible. So feel free to share.
I love this question. And I think asking it during February is probably a lot easier than asking during seeding and harvest of what do you do for yourself to take time for yourself, because that kind of seems like a joke during those busy
Totally
times.
agree.
Right. But some of the things that, you know, I've done for myself, and some of it starts in the winter. So for me, because I run another business on top of farming, I have to plan, and it doesn't sound sexy, and it's not all of the time, but I have to plan my winters and speaking engagements and hosting and the podcast around our farming season. So that for me, once I'm done my winter season of events where I get to meet farmers face to face and interview incredible rural women, I'm all fired up and ready to go. I'm ready to jump in the tractor. I'm ready to jump in the seeder. And that usually wanes probably about June for me. And then I get real tired. And some of the things that I do for myself, I make it a priority to get off of the farm. And I know that is not something that everyone can do. And it's not something that we can do all the time. But even if it's just for a few hours, to connect with somebody else off of the farm, that's enough for me to fill my cup. Another thing that I do is, again, not sexy. I make sure to eat properly, or as properly as I can when I'm working, because I know if we're not fueled correctly, we're not going to make it through. So I think of, do I put gas or diesel in it? You have to figure out what it is that you need. It's just those small things that sometimes we forget, that really helps pull me through those busier times. And another thing, I I use my hands-free device when I'm working to connect with people. So I'm calling people just to see how their days are. I'm connecting with other farmers that I know are in the area that could be going through a drought like we are, or if to see how much rain they had versus how much we had, which was nothing. Um, but just those little things are the things that keep me going through the busy season. Um, Again, they're not grand, they're not sexy, but it's just what I do to help me get through the busier times.
I think it's really important to take some of that time away. I've got 3 kids who are involved in sports, and during the summer when it's really busy, and that's kind of my job switches from farming at a certain time of the day, and then it's on to the kids, and that takes me away and lets me talk to other people about something other than the farm, and that it does help change your mindset, and you do feel refreshed afterwards. And like you said, not everybody is, my husband can't leave as easily as I do. That's how we've set things up on our farm, but it definitely does make a difference. And the eating as well. The last couple of years, it's been really important to me to make sure that we try to have something healthy every night for supper, even if we don't eat it until 9 o'clock or 9:30 at night. But just with growing children, and my husband has multiple sclerosis, so gets tired easily, and keeping your body healthy, like you said, if you fill it up with gas or diesel, you have to think of your body as that same machine. So those are great ways to recharge. Janice, do you want to share?
Yeah, a couple of years ago was the first time, like we have 3 kids as well, and the first time that we were going away. And I remember thinking, I can't leave. It was September, and I was like, I can't leave. There's no way I can leave. But I had to go. It was for a conference I was going to. Of course, farming families travel to farming things. But we had to go, and all of us were going to go for our first family trip because we have friends down in North Carolina, which is where it was. And I remember being so worried, making all of these lists and for all of my helpers, and everything was okay. The farm was still okay at the end of it when we came home. And I just remember thinking, it can't go without me. Nothing can happen without me here. But having the right people on your team and helping out really make it so that you can go away and leave and take those little bits of time. Or if it's a Monday afternoon and say, you know what, you guys are okay doing that in the field, or you have this job to finish. I'm going to go and take the kids to the beach or something this afternoon, just to get away. And it sounds so bad that we have to get away from it all the time, but I mean, it is that time for us to be away from here, because otherwise we're looking out the window and seeing all the things we have to get done.
I think it really takes a village to run a farm. Like, and it's hard to ask for help if it would be nice to get away, or it would be nice, we've all missed weddings or birthday parties or whatever because we've had that feeling like we can't leave. But we've also probably all had someone who said, if you want to go, I'll look after things while you're gone. And it's really hard to take people up on that offer. So I'm glad that you're able to do that now and see the value in that. Kyle? Kyle, do you want to share how you recharge?
Yeah, so I think Caitlin mentioned talking to people, reaching out. I mean, we're all in different parts of the country, do different things in agriculture, but I know one thing we would all have in common is the weather and the markets, no matter where we're at. That's a big factor for all of us. And so, yeah, reaching out to other people in the egg industry to see how their day is, see what's new, see what's challenging. You know, sometimes you reaching out with your problems and they explain their problems. It puts things in perspective for you sometimes. And another thing I try and do is limit social media, time on social media. I think we get too hung up on how other people's lives look and what they're doing and comparing our own to theirs, when really that little screenshot of what they're doing is a small picture of what might actually be going on. And I feel as a society, we're at a new point in we have information instantly at our fingertips because of Google and whatever else, YouTube. And I think we get too bent out of shape when our challenges aren't instantly fixed because we're used to having these instant answers. And I always try and keep that in perspective. Like I don't need an answer to this right now. I'm gonna slow down and figure it out, because in reality that's more how things should go, rather than being used to this instantaneous how do you fix this, how do you build this, or whatever it might be. So I find that's really helpful. And then I think it was mentioned too about hobbies and stuff. I believe we need some part of our day or our week to do something totally removed from our everyday responsibilities, because if you don't ever give that part of your brain a time to rest. You're always thinking about what has to be done this week, what has to be done 3 months from now, how can I get ready for what has to be done 9 months from now. And if we can give ourselves a hobby or something we enjoy to totally relieve our brain of those responsibilities, I feel that's important too.
Yeah, it's definitely having that off switch every now and then can make all the difference in the world. And I'm glad you brought up taking a break from social media. I think, it can be one of our greatest tools, all of this technology and having certain answers right at our fingertips. But then when you get into the, comparison game, or, who's able to get their crop off, and, oh, he's not that far from me, how come I can't get my crop off? And you don't realize until you hit a certain point that it's bothering you, and that it is having an effect on, how you're feeling generally during the day. So definitely, I've taken lots of social media breaks, and it definitely helps as well, me as well. Kristen.
Yeah, I find the best thing I can do for myself when it's especially during the busy season, is actually staying active, which is, it sounds a little counterintuitive because being that I'm growing small scale, a lot of my day is spent physically, it's spent with physical labor. And, at the end of the day, I usually am quite tired, and it seems strange to add more to that, except that if I get into the habit of, even if it's only 3-4 times a week, but I like to get up early and go for a run. And it's just that, the actual pounding out your problems, or just taking a half an hour of me time when I don't get that. And it's also the endorphins that come with it too, right? All of that is stuff that just makes the rest of my day a little bit easier, and kind of I'm able to process a lot more. Like when things go wrong, I'm able to process what's happening, or work through it a little bit better. And again, I say that meaning that, at certain times of the year, it's just a little bit unrealistic to say I'm going to do that every single day, every single week, because, not only do we have I have the garden and the garlic, but we also do grain and we cut hay. And like any farm, there's certain times of the year where that's just not feasible. But as long as I try to make it a priority, it always helps.
A body in motion stays in motion, right? When you
Yeah.
you exercise your body and you're exercising your mind at the same time. But again, it changes that mindset, and yeah, it gets those endorphins out, and allows you to kind of, start fresh and have that break. I know my mother and I actually try to go walking. We've gone every day for the last little bit, but then of course when I get busy again on the fields or whatever, it kind of goes out. But I try to take the dogs out and get in the woods and go for a hike, and it does. It definitely, I sometimes dread going, but then it always feels better afterwards. So. Sarah, what is a way you like to recharge?
Well, I was just thinking about what others were saying and the different things. You can end up feeling a bit like you're on a hamster wheel doing this, because it's easy to say, oh, I do this and I also do that and I do the other, but then it can start to feel like I'm just switching from one job to the next job to the next job. Like I go to my office, and then I be on some meetings for the afternoon, and then I have the kids, and then back to my office, back to the barn, back to like, so when that chain starts to feel like it's just like whipping around too fast for me, I like to do some things with my kids independently. So my oldest boy is on the autism spectrum. My family doesn't live locally, and I find that it's just a lot of time, all of us together. And the thing that those little guys love the most is if they get to go out just with me. So that can be hard to arrange in my lifestyle, but that's something that I really love to do, is just take one. And it's amazing when the kid that you take is just so happy that they're out with you that it really is a fun time to go and do something separately. So I love doing that. They're jokingly calling me Mrs. See and Toss in the house right now, because I've been struggling a bit with my new responsibilities of traveling to Ottawa, I don't know, 10 times a year. And so I've been trying to really reduce what I have to do in the house, because it's chaos in there when I get back. Like, it's so much work to plan and to be ready to go, and then go on the trip, and then you get back and there's just chaos. So I've been really reducing the amount of stuff that I have, which has been a lot of work, but I find it does help. And it's making the kids a little bit more accountable. We were at the trade show at the Pacific Ag Show, where if you've been to an ag show, you know they're giving out endless amounts of free stuff. And my youngest son I said to him, I'm like, really be thoughtful about what you bring home from the ag show, because just because it's free doesn't mean you need to have it. And he was walking up to them and like interviewing people about what their offerings were, and then politely declining. And I was like, yes. But I think there's just all these different elements of it where, I mean, nothing is a silver bullet to solving it all, but I order tons of bulbs in the winter, and then I regret it because I need to plant them all. But then I'm so happy that I'm growing some flowers and like doing things outside. So I think it changes time to time. I don't give myself too much. I mean, I should be honest that I just planted bulbs that I ordered last week, because fortunately I live in BC and I'm just not that organized. But the joy of having flowers out there and doing something different, I mean, that's what I like to do. And all else fails, just go to the barn and pet some heifers, and it gets better. But I think just connecting with everyone, being honest about it, like I really, if someone asks, oh, how are you doing? I try to not give them some sort of veiled answer that makes things sound extra simple for me, because I think it's been interesting how people respond to that, for sure. If they ask you, oh, how do you make all this work out? And I'm like, well, not very smoothly. But I think it's important that we just be honest about those things and talk about them, because if I go around looking like I have a cape and can just do this all no problem, it makes it, you know, it doesn't look like there needs to be any change to the system of how we do things. So I think I have to be honest, and I lean on apps hard. I have a lot of like, I can order pizza, I can do all these things from my tractor, and I don't be accountable to think, oh, I must also cook food, or I just try to choose things. I found that the advice that, like, if you had to look at all the things you think you must do, and then you got to choose which ones you wanted to do, which ones would they be? And then that helps me prioritize, because I feel like the things that I actually like the most are the first ones that people tell me I should stop. They're like, oh, you're not home enough, you know, you're overwhelmed, you should quit the board. That's a great idea. Or, oh, you're overwhelmed, you don't like this, that, the other, you should just stop coming to the barn. You can just go do your board work and not come out. And I'm like, well, thanks for that, but so I try to make sure that I look at what things I actually want to do and prioritize those ones and find ways to make that work, whether it's ordering food or doing different things to set my life up. But make sure that you don't just let go of the stuff you love because you're too busy.
That's a really great point. And sometimes the stuff we love is the hard stuff, right? Like it's not always easy, it's not easily escapable, but also learning when to back away from them, or when to say no, or when to say no, I need to just leave this and move on to the next thing is also really important. So it's, those things are great. And I love, getting your tulips, or I assume they're tulips, but bulbs planted. It's really important for me to have that like home as my sanctuary type thing. Like when you're busy, when you're traveling to Ottawa 10 times a year, or you're out on a tractor for 12 hours a day, it's nice to have that something bright and comfortable to come home to. So it's, maybe a year delayed getting those tulip bulbs in, but still they're worth it. We have a question in the chat, and thank you for submitting it. If you have any questions or comments, please pop them in the chat and we'll get to them. We have about 25 minutes left. It says, hey, thanks for all the shares here. What a great panel. I'm not a farmer, but a therapist interested in supporting farmers more. Thank you for that. And wonder if anyone finds therapy to be supportive or a part of what fills one's cup. Or does it honestly seem like a superfluous thing, especially in the busy season? Anyone want to jump on that one first?
I'll take that one, sure. I love this question because I have spent the majority of my life being or thinking that I didn't need therapy or that it wasn't for me. I had a negative experience with a counselor that it turned me off of it. But in the last year or so, I actually have found somebody new that I connect with really well. And it's become extremely useful in my life, or even just it's taught me a lot about myself and how to better regulate my emotions or how I handle these stressful situations. I started going to see her to help deal with some past trauma issues that I have. And in doing so, I've come to realize just how fresh everything is underneath the surface, where I think I'm handling it super well. And then all of a sudden I'm not, and I'm having a breakdown mid-season because I couldn't do it, or, and it all kind of ties into that. So knowing that I have somebody kind of in my toolkit, we'll say, right? I don't necessarily need to do therapy every single day, but it's the fact of knowing that I'm comfortable that when something does happen, I can turn to them. It's helped me immensely.
Thanks for that. Anyone else want to chat?
I can go next if that's okay. Kristen, I love that you mentioned it's a tool in your toolbox, because when you're talking to farmers and you're talking to people who work with their hands to grow food and all of the things, we need tools to do that. For me, part of getting off of the farm does include counseling, and that's even during the busy times. To be honest, in my adult life, I did not start seeking counseling until a lot later. And it has been something that has helped me immensely through those hard times. And as of right now, I've had to go through numerous counselors to find the right fit. And I think it can be a challenge to find the right person to talk to. But once we do find that person and we have that person in our corner, whether that's through the busy times or when we slow down and we have time to think and we have time to go to these appointments, having professionals that understand the challenges that we face in agriculture is super important. And knowing that, there are times where we can't get off of the combine to come to our appointments. So making it accessible, whether that's on phone or online, there's so many different tools and resources that we have available to us now as farmers. And I am super grateful that the mental health community has stepped up, and Do More Ag is here to support us. And we're having these conversations even through our hard times. So when we're thinking about filling our cup, I didn't think of counseling, but now I'm going to. During those busy times, it is something that's going to fill my cup and keep me going. So thanks for that comment, Erin.
I think sometimes too, we kind of think of counseling as like a last resort, like it's, you know, you don't need it until you need it, instead of using it as a preventative maintenance tool for yourself. So really appreciate the question. Caitlin brought up, you know, chatting with each other and chatting, you know, having things like Do More that kind of bring us together. So I just wanted to mention our Egg Talk program, which you can find on the website, and maybe Michaela can put a link in the chat here. Which does exactly that. It puts you in with a peer group and in with people who are able to help you navigate a challenge that you may be having, or just need to talk to someone. And also, Erin, I'm not sure if you're aware of our Egg Culture program, but it is a literacy program that's developed for a mental health professional. So it may be worth checking out. Caitlin mentioned finding the right person can be a challenge because we have a different language in agriculture, and when you're trying to, you know, talk about your stresses, and because you're not meeting your bushels per hectare, or you're not getting, you know, all of what you think you should be getting, and the person on the other side of the room is looking at you, you know, what's a bushel, what's an acre, what's this, what's that, you know, you're paying for this service to feel better, and you're explaining everything. So those are two really great programs that we offer. I see there are links in the chat now. Did anybody else want to talk about therapy or counseling, how they feel about checking it out, or if anybody has found it to be supportive? Kyle?
Yeah, I think, you know, like you said, it doesn't have to be a last resort. It can be something that helps you when you get just overly bogged down, help you remind you of some of the ways to work through it, and just keep you sharp before it goes, you know, too much the other way where you can't sleep and whatever else might be wrong. But yeah, I feel it's a really good opportunity for someone else to bring you the obvious, sometimes obvious answers and how to deal with stuff, and it just sharpens you back up, and then gives you more tools to deal with the next time too.
Yeah, I'll jump in too. I've found it super helpful, like some coaching type relationships as well, where there's so much that is out of your control about agriculture and just kind of learning about things not being personal, which sounds so easy but isn't. Learning about what you can actually influence, what you have control over. Just having another person work with you on those things. It doesn't have to be a counselor. Even like for me, it's oftentimes been a business coach or different types of people that I've worked with. I did work with a counselor for quite a period of time, and we kind of ran up against this thing where he was like, well, ultimately, you keep coming back to me and saying you're having the same challenges for a number of years with the farm, and you're choosing to be there. So I don't really know what to say anymore. And I was like, well, yeah, that's true. So I think that it's so great to me that there are people who want to work specifically. I mean, I've had the advantage to talk to a lot of different people over time now that work specifically in the ag space and understand that, because you can spend years and years at it and then get this feeling like, well, you're the one choosing to be there. Sorry, I can't really sort that out with you. Like there's more to it than that. It's such a dedication and a lifestyle, and it doesn't, like, some of it is just having a person who gets it. So I think it's so promising that there's so many resources for that and ways to connect with people who do get the space and understand it, but also to really help us to understand how we can kind of dial it into what we can control ourselves. Because when you look at the general space, it's tremendously overwhelming, and just kind of narrowing it up to something that you can actually make change over is really positive.
I think it's great that you took that comment to say, well, you're still there, you know, like you haven't left yet, but you took that and said, oh, okay, you know, maybe I can do more with it to change things on my end. So that's, you know, that's a valuable lesson too, to feel if you're stuck, or understanding that you're in that hamster wheel, is what can I do to jump off of it? So that's great. We are winding down. We have about 15 minutes left. So one thing I wanted to kind of chat with everyone about, now that we've heard, you know, what everyone does, and, you know, to bring that little bit of brightness back or recharge. And I'm wondering if you have any, you know, goals for the year ahead to help relieve some of that stress, or if maybe over the past year you've picked up some new tools and are, putting those into motion to either take a little bit of the load off of yourself, or maybe you are planning more time away or more activities to kind of switch your mindset. Just kind of interested to hear throughout this conversation if anything has popped up, or like Kyle and Caitlin both mentioned drought, and I know how stressful that can be, and what tools did you pick up going through that will help carry through the next year?
I think it's like I can agree with what Sarah said about kind of realizing what you can and can't control. I mean, going forward this year, we're not in the best of shape for moisture yet with lack of snow and how our soil moisture reserves are going in the last fall. But at the end of the day, worrying about if the spring's going to be wet or not isn't going to change whether or not the spring's going to be wet or not. So realizing, going forward this year, that's going to be a big goal for me, is really trying to focus on the things I can control and the things I can't control. You can be prepared. That's different from being worried about what's going to happen. I know for myself and my family, that's something we're really focusing on, is take it as it comes and be prepared, but don't worry about what you can't control.
I think that's super important. Same opposite issue in Nova Scotia and the Maritimes, but just lack of productivity last year, and there's nothing you can do about it, but it eats away at you. So coming to terms that you can't change it, so what can you do, in the meantime to get you through that is really, really important. Caitlin?
Well, this reminds me of the story of harvest of, I believe it was 2018. And this was my very first from start to finish harvest that I had quit my career. I was going to be a farmer. I was a farmer. And we had a great 2017 harvest. Everything went well. I think it was the second week of September. It snowed on our crops and they were still standing, and I still have the photos of everything flat as a pancake with snow. And now I look at it and think, I would like to have some of that snow now, but we don't have it. And I can remember sitting on the edge of the bed that morning, and I was just crying because I was crushed. We worked so hard to see our crop grow, and we nourished it. We have irrigation. We stayed there all summer to water it, and now it was flat. And one thing my husband said to me that I will never forget is, we can't control the uncontrollable. All we can do is try again next year. And that is the motto that I've lived by since then. We'll do the best we can with what we have, and the uncontrollable, we just have to breathe through it and let it go. Like I said, I'm a planner. I love to plan. I do as best as I can. But something that I've learned through my years in agriculture and through counseling is that you can't control everything. And what are the things that you can control? And just focus on those. And also just look for the good in the situation. So, when it did snow, did I get to sleep in the next day? You betcha. So I got to, have some more time with my family and not have to worry about getting up and going out. So finding those moments in our everyday that we can be grateful for the lifestyle that we have, that's something that I try and do the best that I can all the time. And it seems to get me through those hard times.
It's so hard to get rid of that I must plan everything mentality too. And then when you come up against weather changes or sudden storms, and that plan goes to plan B or plan C, and it's really hard to beat that out of your brain sometimes. Kristen?
Yeah, this is a good question. I'm sitting here thinking of how I want to answer it, because I feel like I have a lot of goals this year. And some of it definitely is just personal goals, but then to how to make my business better or my life on the farm better. And the best thing that I can come up with is I want to be better at handling myself with kindness. So because things are so busy and go, 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 and this season is so short here, it's really easy to put these unrealistic expectations on yourself. And when things go wrong, whether that's weather, like we're talking about the droughts and everything, or maybe it's the equipment that I always break, that situation is just made so much worse and so much harder when the narrative is I failed or I did this. And it's something that I've been working on and I'd like to continue, is to change that narrative to be kinder, right? Where, you know, if it were happening to somebody else, you would say, it's okay, it's going to be okay, and give them some respect to deal with it. And that's what I want to work on, because farming is hard, and it's exponentially harder when you take it personally or you blame yourself for the things that happen.
It's hard to change the narrative from I failed to I tried.
Totally.
You know, you're trying and you're hoping the outcome is positive, but it's not always possible, and it's hard to see if it doesn't work out that you still learn something from it, right? So that's a great goal. Janice?
I would say like mine is just asking for and accepting help more. So this past year, we've been 1 year since I hired a housekeeper. So we've just kind of gone on that, and it's been really helpful to know that I don't have to worry about in the house really on a weekly basis kind of thing. She comes and helps with that and being okay with that. I remember thinking like, oh, I have to get the dishes done, I have to do this, and I have to do all of these things. And now I don't have to worry about it. And it's amazing how nice and how much it's taken off my shoulders. And even though every week she comes, I'm like, I'm sorry that we brought mud in. I'm sorry, like it's dirty and the kid left stuff everywhere. And she's like, no, that's what I'm here for. That's my job. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. So just accepting and being okay with having help.
We kind of talked about that earlier, but more as in having help on the farm, but having help with the day-to-day, just whether it's cleaning or laundry or somebody making a meal for you every now and then, can make a big difference too. So that's a great goal. I had somebody coming in to clean, just do like a deep clean once a month as well, and we stopped it because I don't know why. I think we were so busy that I didn't even know if I'd be here to let them in. And it's something I'm definitely going to start doing again, because as we get busier, it's definitely needed. Sorry, my dog is trying to steal her supper in the background. So we're in the last 5 minutes here. So I just thought I would kind of go around one more time and do some closing thoughts. We've talked about some goals and what fills our cups, and looking forward in the future and what things will change. So just in closing, maybe we can just chat briefly about what tips we can give some others. What's our go-to? I know Caitlin mentioned her husband had his motto of we can't change it and we live with it. Sarah, I think you mentioned something as well, but I'm a big component of learning, and I always find that if something is hard, I'm still learning from it. That is something I remember. If it's a little uncomfortable, it means I'm learning something. And I find that's something I fall back on a lot in situations where, you know, it's high stress, or you're just seemingly stuck, and you think about what you can change and why you're uncomfortable, and you learn more about yourself and about what's going through. So I'm going to kind of go in reverse order this time, if I remember how to do it. Sarah?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what everybody said, and I can relate to all of the things you're saying, like something to take away from it. There's little bits in what everybody's got going, but I've been really intentionally trying to find some little spots of joy here and there. And I used to do that more so with Instagram. I feel like I took pictures just to like capture something that was really positive to me. but then I thought, you know, do I really need to share that for it to still be positive? So I really don't do that as much as I used to. But I've started just trying to, like, when I'm walking with colleagues somewhere and we're like experiencing a beautiful clear night in the city, or if I'm in the tractor and I'm raking grass and it's like the only order I can bring to this life, and I look behind me and I'm like, yes, so tidy. I just really love to like capture some little piece that I like carry with me further, that's just a really happy, positive little thing. And I just be intentional about thinking about that thought, and they start to pile up. So I think that in my mental space, it kind of files them all together, and you start to think, wow, you know, there are some great things that are happening to me every day, and I just have to look for them. So, but yeah, I'm so grateful to have chatted with all of you. I really relate to what you're saying, and I too have called a housekeeper, and I order a meal kit 2 nights a week. And you know, there's just different things that you can do to try to make your life easier. But I think one of them really is just to talk to other people and learn about their lives and realize that yours is not so different. And so, yeah, that's been great. Thanks.
Yeah, enjoying those little moments. And I know what you mean exactly by seeing those like nice straight rows in the field. Like there's just something about that. It's like cleaning up the laundry room or something. Everything's like tidy and put away. I love that feeling. Janice?
I think my biggest thing, and it comes from my parents as well, is just like sticking to it and like the stick to itness of a farmer. Like my parents have been growing vegetables for over 40 years in that, and just knowing that like every year there's going to be hard times, every year there's going to be good times. So it's just getting through those each year. And I think like in flower farming for sure, there was a huge influx of flower farmers right around the pandemic. And it's really interesting seeing how many of them now, 4 years into it, are realizing that, you know what, this is kind of hard. And it's not walking with linen skirts in a basket and are carrying flowers in the meadow kind of thing. So they're starting to realize it, and just like the stick to it, and knowing that there's going to be good and there's going to be bad, and just each year taking each year as it is, because every year is not going to be perfect, if any years are going to be perfect.
That reminds me, Caitlin, was it you that had the board? What does that say?
It says a bad word. I don't think I could share.
Oh, we can bleep that out.
Something about twirling and things.
Yeah, yeah.
But hey, I love a good twirl. Let's not knock a good twirl.
I'm sure you can find it on our Instagram. Kyle, any parting thoughts?
Yeah, I think again, to do what Sarah said is looking to find the little things and be able to appreciate them. It sounds like we're all in the same boat as far as we do a lot with our families on the place. And if you had a normal job, I mean, that's something that you couldn't do. And I mean, there's nothing that makes me happier than if we're riding out through a field of cows with my 4 and 3 year old daughter, and my 4 year old picks her 4 cows out of 150 before I can. I mean, that's, you know, that those are the really cool moments, and I think it makes you feel much more. Um, it makes you feel better about yourself in that you are in fact taking the time to be part of the family, because if it wasn't for you and how you were raising those kids, they wouldn't be able to do things like that. So, you know, and being easy on yourself, that yeah, we are busy and stuff, but we all do it together, and the kids are learning skills and things like that that they maybe wouldn't get if we had a normal job.
Yeah, it's a whole family thing. Even if there's one person working on the farm and everyone else is, you know, maybe has an off-farm job or in school or whatever, but the farm, it brings you all together for those evening rides, or, you know, a bonfire in a field type thing, or that's really important. Kaylin, you're gonna close us out here.
So something that I've known this for quite some time in agriculture, and I think all of the panelists here today have proven this. We're not alone, and I think there are times where we feel like we are, and we feel like our struggles are only affecting us. But we're not alone in agriculture. We're a small number in the grand scheme of things, but when we work together and when we communicate and when we share our stories with one another and when we share our stories with the broader public, people get to see the folks behind their food and their products. So I'm so grateful to be a part of this panel today, and I'm hoping that you know, us sharing our stories has inspired you to share yours and connect with other folks in agriculture on Canada's Ag Day. And thank you.
Yes, that was perfect. That's what we're here to do, to celebrate food, to celebrate the people who bring the food to our tables, and make sure that we're all here for each other and sharing our stories. If it inspires one person out of all of this to share their story, then we've made an impact. So I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today, and for the panelists today. It was great to see all of you, some of you again. I just wanted to remind everybody, if you want to learn more about Do More, to find us on the web at domore.ag or on any social media. Check out Do More Agriculture. The events page has all kinds of stuff on it across Canada for our training and opportunities to learn more about mental health literacy, or I'm trying to think of all of them. Talk, Ask, Listen, and Mental Health First Aid, as well as check out Ag Talk. You can put it right on your phone, and if you need to reach out at any time to another producer or to a specialist, it's right at your fingertips. So thanks for joining us.